Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing, well, this whole digital money notion yet again. And I thought of making two videos. I'm going to go ahead and consolidate them and make one. Initially, I thought of making a rather snarky video, and then I decided against it because this isn't an issue I ever really intended to be snarky about. It's very concerning to me. If you haven't noticed, I'm pretty impassioned about this topic. But at the same time, I do understand folks in the government and things are working in good faith. They're just trying to do the best that they can, and being snarky isn't going to help anything. I initially thought of making this video after I read a recent article in the Bangkok Post. It's bangkokpost.com. And the article was titled, Government's 10,000 baht digital handout faces delays and targeted reductions for the poor. Deputy Minister of Finance Julapon Amonwiwat says. So I thought of calling that shrink, delay, and who is to pay for Orwellian digital wallet. I'm not even going to quote that article because I'm going to get to another one. But the thrust of the article was, first of all, they've delayed it. I urge those who are watching this video, go check out that article in detail. We'll put it up on screen here, but they've delayed it. And they've said that they're really going to retool it. We'll get to sort of the nuts and bolts of that in a minute. Point I'm trying to make is I don't want to make a video where we're just going to be snarky for snarky's sake. I'm concerned about this, but there's no reason to really do that. So time went by between the last time we were doing videos and another article came out again from the Bangkok Post. This one's titled, PM Puts Faith in Deputy to Front E-Wallet Scheme. Quoting directly, Prime Minister and Finance Minister Srettha Thavisin has defended his deputy Julapon Amonwiwat against criticism of his ability to lead the government subcommittee overseeing the launch of the 10,000 baht digital money handout scheme. So first of all, just as an aside, I urge those who are watching this video, go read that article in detail. A lot of information in there, a lot going on in there. One thing I do want to say, and the reason I decided not to make continue to kind of have a little bit of a snarky, perhaps sort of a snarky undertone, if you will, to these videos is there was an interesting little aside in that video where they said that the Prime Minister was standing behind his deputy on this whole thing. And I thought it was kind of nice to see, honestly, especially I pay a fair bit of attention to Western politics, most notably American politics. And man, it's not a particularly collegial atmosphere over there by any stretch of the imagination. And so when I see just some basic levels of decency, I keep thinking in the crazy world we live in, and especially in Western politics, that somebody's going to stand up much akin to during the McCarthy hearings and sort of say, have you no decency, sir, which sort of broke the spell of that whole McCarthy hearing, notwithstanding the fact that there may have been a little more to the whole communism threat than people now give it credit for. But leaving that aside, that it had spiraled into a very undignified and indecent place where it had gone, and it sort of broke the spell when somebody said that. It was really just kind of nice to read that one person in politics had just been sort of decent to another one. So I just thought that was worth pointing out. Quoting further, Mr. Julapon has encouraged escalating criticism made by some academics and political pundits after he told the media last week the details of a summary from the latest round of the subcommittee's discussions. I would like to stop there and say, well, he's probably encountered escalating criticism from the fact that digital money is a terrible idea and that it's totalitarian in the extreme. I mean, there's no other real word for it. Totalitarianism means to control people in their totality. And I can't think of any singular measure on earth that more encompasses taking control of people in total than taking control or having total surveillance and the ability to turn on and off their economic transactions. I can't think of anything else that would do that, short of outright slavery. I can't think of anything else that would unilaterally do that. So Perhaps the criticism, as I'll get to in a moment, isn't so much on the program, it's on the methodology, because the methodology is terrifying. Quoting further, and this is where the rubber hits the road, and I think that there's some insight here, and maybe we can get past this and put this behind us. Quoting directly, the three new options are to offer the digital money to the 15 to 16 million people who previously registered in the past government's state welfare project, to provide the promised digital money to only the, okay, so that's one. So let's go through this one by one. The three new options are to offer the digital money to the 15 to 16 million people who previously registered in the past government state welfare project. It's my understanding this was the project that came about during the lockdowns and during all of that, between the promulgation of the emergency decree in March of 2020 until October of 2022, when that was rescinded. We saw a lot going on. One of them was a scheme that allowed folks that were in the welfare system to go ahead and gain some benefits and utilize certain vouchers to go get foodstuffs, things that they needed. Quoting further, to provide the promised digital money to only those who earn less than 25,000 baht a month. Well, again, it's not so much the money that bothers me particularly, although, you know, when you're going into debt to give out, and that's the only thing that's been proposed at this point is debt being utilized to give out this quote-unquote handout. Okay, if the whole country goes into debt, why do only certain people get it? That's why that one kind of bothers me a little bit. Or to include only those who earn no more than 50,000 baht a month into the new handout program. Again, same thing, basing it on how much somebody makes. Well, the whole country, if it's a debt thing, the whole country has to deal with the debt. So, you know, basing it on threshold seems like that's a little bit arbitrary. The more to the point, though, is the fact that it's still digital money. We got to just not have digital money. That's the point. Look, at the end of the day, I really do get it. And it's why I don't even agree with these thresholds. Because even somebody who was making 50,000 baht a month, if they were cut off from their livelihood for 2.5 years, which is what happened to many people, you know, a 10,000 baht quote-unquote handout, now they're not going to get it because they're making 50,000 baht or 25,000 baht again. It does, you know, if what you're going for is a level of equity, I guess, and I hate that word in the way it's used, especially in Western context, but if you're going for a level of equity in how this redistribution works, you know, these thresholds of income, I don't know that helps. And again, because everyone got shut down for 2.5 years. It wasn't just people who made 50,000 baht a month or less, or 25,000 baht a month or less. Okay. Back to, though, the issue of this 15 to 16 million people who previously registered in the past government state welfare project. Optimal words there. State welfare project. Look, I think it's laudable that this government sees that there's a real problem, especially in the lower strata of income earners and the lower strata of the economy, if you will, of the country, not lower in terms of anything wrong with them by people, but just in terms of income. And that a lot of people got shut out of their livelihoods, which they did over 2.5 years. They got just shut out of their livelihoods, and that has caused problems. It's very laudable that this government wants to do something about that. I'm glad to see it. I agree with it in principle. What I don't agree with, and what really freaks me out, is digital money, because it isn't money. It's complete and total surveillance. It's complete and total control over people's ability to store value, to earn their own money, to live independently and individually, to live as Thais, quite honestly. As I said in a prior video, you know, the notion of Thai means free. To live as free people is basically, you know, digital money abrogates that. It's the antithesis of that. So if they say there's 15 to 16 million people who are presently registered in the past government state welfare project, let's start there and hand out just money or figure out some voucher system so that they can get some assistance. But let's not, as it were, throw the baby out with the bathwater, although that's not a very good metaphor. Let's not just take on this totalitarian surveillance because people are having some problems. State welfare has been administered in the past. Now, reasonable people can disagree regarding amounts and who should be eligible. That's whatever it is, and people can have those discussions. But again, why is it required that we promulgate an entirely new digital money based on this need, which we've seen in the past and we've dealt with in the past? Many countries have dealt with this in the past. Again, it's the digital money that's the issue. And again, as we've discussed, the fact that it can be turned on and off, the fact that it can be only usable within a given radius of where one is at, the fact that they came out and said, Mr. Julepan himself said that those who enter into the scheme and utilize this digital money will never be able to convert it into cash. They can only use it with vendors who are themselves part of the tax system, as we discussed in a prior video. Again, this video is not intended to lay into anybody, and it's not intended to be snarky. It's just intended to bring to the foreground a serious concern I have, and I think anybody should have, regarding the notion of just going to this completely new monetary system that, quite honestly, if anybody is just sat down and told how this works, anybody with common sense is going to have a serious problem with this scheme. Finally, quoting further, quote, "It is unfair to accuse Mr. Julepan of changing the digital wallet project's core principles, as the three new options are the outcome of the subcommittee's work and not his own opinions," said government spokesman Chai Wacharonk. Okay, so, couldn't agree more. It is unfair to accuse Mr. Julepan of changing the digital wallet project's core principles. I see what the principle is. You want to help people, and you especially want to help people who have been put in a really bad situation by the events that have transpired within roughly the last 3 years. Totally understandable. But it is the digital wallet issue. It is the digital money issue, which is the crux of at least my problem. And anybody who looks at this and for what it is, which is, hey, if you implement this system, which, by the way, they've said has a price tag of 560 billion baht, which, from what I've read, was supposed to be drawn from increasing the debt to GDP ratio of Thailand from 60 to 70%. That seems to, I've seen a lot of, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds of where the money's coming from. That's not, again, really overly my concern. My concern is changing money into something that really isn't money by anyone's definition of it up to this point in the history of time, quite honestly. I mean, it needs to be a medium of exchange, but quite honestly, I don't even know that you could argue the way that this has been described, this digital wallet stuff, that this is even a medium of exchange, because it's not free exchange. You can't just use it anywhere. As they noted, you can only use it with vendors that are already in the tax system. You can't convert it into cash. So then what is it? It's not money, as I've discussed in other videos. Again, that's the core principle I get. I get what the government is trying to do. They're trying to help people, and that's laudable. I really, really can't say that enough. I can't stress it enough. It's a good thing. But this, and I actually don't think anybody had any ulterior motives here that's in the government. I think they were coming up with a plan. This digital wallet notion is kind of a new hip thing. It's sort of what's happening now, you know, and they sort of cottoned onto it, if you will, and sort of incorporated it into the broader principle of just helping people out. I can totally understand that, and that makes a lot of sense to me. But at the end of the day, this digital money, quote unquote, from every angle I've looked at it, with the possible exception of using digital sort of markers, if you will, between intra-central bank or inter-central bank, you know, this so-called M-Bridge proposal that I've actually talked about on my personal channel, you know, which is going to be a conglomeration, or it's a sort of a, it's working in cooperation with Bank of Thailand, Hong Kong Monetary Authority and their counterpart up in Dubai, up in the UAE, as we've discussed, creating this bridge to allow offshore central banks from outside of those jurisdictions to be able to interact using digital money from inside different jurisdictions with central banks to facilitate international trade. I'm not saying I'm completely sold on that, but I can understand the argument of why that would be a good idea moving forward. But when it comes to the consumer level, or even beyond even that, not just the consumer, but the national level, where you're dealing with the monetary system inside a given country, I've got serious problems with it for all the reasons I've discussed. It's not real money. It can be turned on and off. They can set the proximity of where it can be used. They can set how it can be used. They can set where you can use it. As noted previously, you can only use it with those who are registered in the tax system. It can't be converted to cash. For all of these reasons, I don't like the methodology. It's not the underlying principle. It's not the underlying goal, which is to help people who are in need. I think the government's goal there is laudable, but it's the methodology of this digital money to do that that makes no sense to me. Again, if you've got 15 to 16 million people already in the state welfare project system, that's the place to start. And it doesn't require this imposition of a completely Orwellian, super expensive, and to this point, completely unprecedented type of monetary system in order to affect that goal.